Ho, hey, how are we all? It's Tuesday. I'm totally lost because I'm used to doing the intro for a Wednesday. I just said goodbye to these gentlemen with my intro for Pommy and us, so I'm totally lost. But I'm Pom. Welcome, everyone. We've got the same team selection show. I've taken on the feedback, though, because everyone likes the digestion of the game. So there's a few amendments this week, but I am always joined by an elite combination of team selectors and a man who is always with me. I spend more time with him than my wife. In fact, if I was to have an affair and I changed her number to Leg Dog, my wife would never suspect a thing. Mr. Leg Dog, how are you doing?
Very well, mate. I'm very, very well. It is a pleasure to talk to you once again today. It's my favorite 3 hours of the day talking to you. So let's get into it.
You know what? True story for everyone at chat. I got a new phone last week and I changed your name to Lexi. Right in it, just by accident. I didn't mean to. And it came up on the phone. Lexi is calling Lexi. And Zoe's like, who's Lexi? And I'm like, it's Leg Dog. Honestly, babe, it's Leg Dog. So it is a problem. My wife does suspect I'm having an affair with you. But another man is joining us, legend of the Counting YouTube scene, legend in the football scene as well. None other than Mr. Heath Bucks, celebrity and YouTube extraordinaire. How are you doing, mate?
Gee, that's a good intro, mate. It's we're going to have to live up to that, aren't we? Yeah, great to be here. There's lots of hellos coming through I can see on the feed there. So g'day to everyone. This is going to be a good one tonight. It's probably the hardest one I reckon I've had to do this year. Obviously, it's Tuesday. The injury report didn't come out to, what time was that, Tommy? The injury report. Yeah, no, I'd already put my team in by then. So, yeah, I haven't included a couple of those guys, but I sort of like what I've put together. I'm pretty confident with what I've put together. So, yeah, I found this one really difficult considering we've been sort of close, but not close enough. There's some guys that are not performing, balance, the strengths of Melbourne, all that type of stuff had to come into consideration. But then you've just got this sort of like trio of players who could potentially come in. Obviously, Marchbank, Martin, and also McGovern, which makes it really interesting. Whether those three all come in, I don't know. I don't think so. But I wouldn't put it past Michael Voss to bring the three in.
Mate, he's putting Marchbank in this team. I'll tell you that much. He could have one leg, and he'd put him in the team. So.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, mate. And look, from a positive point of view, I think Marchbank, when he did come into the team last year, I thought he had a pretty bloody solid final series. You know, arguably one of our best in the loss against Brisbane. Really good in the game against Sydney. Not bad against Melbourne as well. So his final series was good, but just getting him on the park, you know, like the three of them coming into the team potentially are three guys that have been perennial guys who've been on the sidelines for a long time. So it's not like we can trust them, you know what I mean? So they've got talent, but we just don't see them enough. So I don't know whether they all three come in, but I wouldn't put it past Michael Voss to bring him in, as I said before.
I mean, if we end up having, no more serious injuries, or at least for a little bit, it's going to be really, really tough picking a team over in the next few weeks. Marchbank, Martin, McGovern, Williams all available this week, and then you got Motlop, who's a couple of weeks away, and you've got Sard, who's a couple of weeks away, and then Fogarty will be back, and that's 7 or 8 of your most talented players. I don't know if they're in your best team, but geez, they probably are. It's going to be tough.
Yeah. And I think you make a sort of really good point there too, Lecky. I mean, those guys that have been on the fringe, we saw Brody Kemp dropped last week, went back to the VFL now. It's probably the worst time to be dropped if you're looking at the guys coming back into this team. And if you were one of those guys on the fringe, when the team was, a little bit tested, you really needed to step up. Did he take the most of his opportunities? I'm not quite sure. He was actually reasonable in the VFL on the weekend. So, I can't see him getting back in if Marchbank's ready to go. And he can stay on the park.
It's going to be interesting. like you both say, worst time to get dropped at the moment because potentially you're holding the spot at the moment, and in 3 weeks' time, the main guy comes back. So, I mean, we're talking about drop-ins. Obviously, here, what you see before you, I listened, and you said you love the debate on who we're going to axe. So I thought, here it is. We're going to call this the axogram. This is the risk. So what you're seeing now is the algorithm POM uses all the time. But this is what we expected them based on their last 5 games to do last week and how they actually performed. And as you can see, there's some names there that probably don't shock you. Mr. Lewis Young, everyone loves to drop him. He's there. Orazio Fantasia is there. George Hewitt, Cripps and Walsh are there as well. That's because of their output and their efficiency, not so much because of what they did. But genuinely, if you're in the 100% range, something's gone wrong. You've either had a brand new role, like PDK, hardly any ruck time, and then got battered there, or Lewis Young, where, yeah, you probably had a bit of issues. So, chat and my esteemed guest, who, when you were picking this team, were you thinking, you've got a problem, you're not here next week?
I mean, Orazio Fantasia was the one for me, but I've been saying that for 4 weeks now. So I don't know if that's a surprise. I said it last week, just stop telling me you can play football and show me you can play football. And he still hasn't shown it to me in senior level for Carlton. So I think I just think he has to play in the reserves. I don't think this is like, Teague used to do this, where he had his mates. Ed Kerno was one who just played him every single week. Eddie Betts played every game, and we were just like, they're not doing anything. Why are they still in the team? Feels a bit like that. So
he's got a bit of Cam Paulson about him, hasn't he, Fantasia?
It's mind-boggling, really. And if I hear one more person say, he's doing selfless things, he's running patterns, he's allowing others to hit the scoreboard, I think I'll spew up. I think he is he's a shadow of the player he was at Essendon in the early days when he first went to Port Adelaide. I think the positive moving forward now, it's a 2-year contract, if that's right, isn't it? It's not just the 1 year contract. So we have invested in him for 2 years, unless there's a trigger on that poll. I'm not quite sure. He's probably already got the trigger. He's played, 7 games? He only missed that game through illness. I think the positive is his body looks all right. I mean, the issue, I think the biggest concern with Fantasia was whether his body would hold up, not necessarily whether he could play football. Now, it's sort of flipped. His body's okay, but he's just battling away. And I just don't think you can carry a player who has such limited impact, whether it's defensively or whether it's with ball in hand. He's just not getting a pill. He looked lost on the weekend, and I think if Williams hadn't have gone off injured, he was the one in the gun to go off in regards to being subbed out of the game. He was probably lucky in the end that he survived. So I don't think it's a surprise. It would be an admission, a little bit like Ollie Holland's going out. I mean, we were saying for a few weeks that he was on the nose, and eventually Wazze did drop him. It will be an admission, I think, if Fantasia isn't playing this week, that they've probably had a fair bit of faith in him to come good, but it just hasn't worked. So I'd be gobsmacked if he's playing this weekend against the Doos. Oh, sorry, on Thursday night, not the Thursday night.
Sorry. Pom, I'll just a quick one for me. I don't want to shit talk him, but if we want some evidence, like on some statistical evidence, if your eyes are deceiving you, if you're a fan of Fantasia, the only stats that AFL champion data measures that he ranks, not below average in this year, are 1 intercept possession a game. He has a 50% contested possession rate. He only has 7 possessions a game, and goal assists. He's slightly above average. Everything else is below league average, and you just like every single stat, you can't carry that. You just can't.
Does anyone else though feel with Orazio like he's all over he reminds me of Durden when Voss first came. Like it's like he's just caught in no man's land all the time. He's trying to do the team defense, and then he forgets he's a team attacker. So I'm not surprised about the intercept possession stat, because sometimes he's at halfway, we win the ball back, but he's the last one to get inside D50. Like, me and Terry were talking about it in the ratings. I saw with my own eyes Chincotta overlap him and on transition, and I'm like, that's the back pocket overlapping your forward pocket. It doesn't seem fitness. It seems like he's caught out. It's like he either doesn't understand what Voss wants, or he's not in the game. It's a worry. I'm genuinely worried about a man that's played over 100 games and been in the system 10 years. It feels like he's a draftee.
Mm.
Yeah. I suppose the other one, I think the interesting one, boys, if we do bring Martin in, and Marchbank and McGovern comes in, does that make potentially Mark Pitnet in trouble?
Yeah, it's
because I know he did a really good job on Gawn last year in that final. Well, when I say really good job, Gawn didn't have much of an impact in that final last year. Or one of those two doesn't play, because I still think if you bring those, I know McGovern can cover the ground and Marchbank, they're quite mobile for their size, but I see Martin more as a hybrid type forward, in the Silvani mould rather than a small forward.
Yeah, he's not a small.
Are we essentially going to be top heavy? And I thought we were a little bit top heavy against Collingwood in regards to our speed through the midfield one. But geez, if we're bringing three big boys back into the team, I know Young will go out if they come back in, but I don't know. I don't know if we can play two rucks. Melbourne don't play two rucks; they just play Gawn and a backup. So it's one to think about. I didn't think the two worked particularly well against a really good Darcy Cameron on the weekend. I thought he was excellent for Collingwood, although he didn't win a lot of ball around the ground. Just thought his stoppage work was excellent. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for it to work, TDK has to kick goals, doesn't he? Like, that's the only way it works.
Yeah, and I think he's been doing that. He got us back into the game late. I reckon he looks dangerous. I honestly do. I think he's turned the corner a little bit with his forward craft. He's looks really confident in the air. He's not grabbing them all the time, but he's looking a threat. What's he kicked? 5 goals in the last 2 weeks, or 4 goals?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's okay, but it's more, I suppose, who we bring in. If we're going to bring Martin in, it just makes us look a little bit cumbersome. You know what I mean? There's a lot of tools. So it's an interesting one. I mean, I wouldn't call Martin. Is Martin quick? Is he quick? Does he cover the ground really well?
I think he can be selective with his burst speed. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to chase you down. It's like Mitch McGovern can sometimes look quick. It just usually ends with a hamstring injury. So.
Yeah, it's the problem with Martin is I forgot the way he plays. It's like we haven't seen. It's like we don't see him enough. And then when he comes in, he obviously makes an impact, but he's just can't get him on the park. But I think, obviously Lewis Young goes out. I think he's the other one in trouble, boys. And you've got to ask the questions about how top heavy we are through the midfield. Does Matthew Kennedy play? I mean, I thought that was disastrous on the weekend. He was either on the ground or not playing, if you know what I mean. I just thought it was I wasn't in the camp if he needed to play. I just thought we looked top heavy through the midfield, and he gave us nothing when he came on, because what we needed late in that game was speed. We needed someone to break the line, someone to get on their bike. That could have been an Ollie Hollins. That could have been a Jackson Binns. And we just didn't have it. I watched Kennedy. He just looked like, it's nothing against him, but he did not add anything to the game for us in regards to a little bit of outside speed. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of questions to be asked around the makeup of that midfield and the speed of that midfield. Can we have Hewitt, Chera, Cripps? Who's the other one I'm missing out? So there's 4 that are pretty much one pace. We know Walsh is relatively quick, but he's more your sort of gut running type rather than sort of covering the ground with speed. So I don't know whether Kennedy, like it was interesting why he was sub in the first place. Obviously, too many of those, I suppose.
It's something we talked about, though, isn't it, Bucky? That at the start of when we did this series, the subs have kind of been imaginative, that kind of impact player. Do you know what I mean? The small pocket. And although they haven't set the world alight, it kind of did change the dimensions. It felt I don't know how anyone else felt. When I saw the team, when they released it on Thursday, my initial thought was very safe. It felt like Voss had really gone in and he'd like played a percentage game with what's the safe play. And then we played incredibly safe as well. Like we lived down the right wing, far away from our goal. It felt like the first 4 weeks, it was quite bold and industrious. And this week, it felt really safe, didn't it? It felt like he was almost sticking to what he knew.
And exactly right, mate. I think you hit the nail right on the head. And it was just so obvious once Hollins went out that Cottrell would go to a wing. You know what I mean? It was just like he went straight to the wing where he used to play. And I thought he just sort of couldn't get into the game. It's like a position he hasn't played for a while. And he probably had, I know he kicked a great goal late. It was a clutch goal, but it's like he could not get into the game. It was like a safe, like we've got our plan. We'll put Cottrell back onto the wing. We've got a backup inside mid as the sub. We're going to go in with 3 small forwards. It's just, I thought it was really safe. And maybe we have been a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Obviously our depth has been tested, but I don't know. I just thought, there wasn't much flair about what we did in regards to even mixing it up, guys, throughout the game. Mixing it up. It was very much status quo for the 4 quarters, and it sort of played out that way.
There's Pom, before you go into this, because I was going to lead into this for you. There's some questions in chat around sort of pace, foot speed, all that sort of stuff. Are we too top heavy? You flagged it as well, Bucky. I mean, I think I put together like our best team today I could, and they're all tall pricks or really small forwards, and they're all slow. So maybe they are maybe they're intentionally leaning into the lack of speed and hoping they can just bully teams, but we haven't necessarily nailed that in terms of scoring, Pommy. Now you've already got it up. Great. Yeah,
well, I mean, I think I agree with you what everyone's saying, but like I always, like you say, you look at our list. I always think if I was the coach, you build a tactic and a structure around your list. And Carlton's list is big, strong, medium-paced at best. So, like, you can't play creative, X-Factor, really quick football. I mean, I'd say Carlton's top 5 players in a sprint. I mean, Mitch McGovern's up there. Like, let that sink in. You've got Mitch McGovern, probably Billy Wilson, Chinkot Assad. And then outside of that, like, no disrespect to Cripps, but I watch Cripps run and think I could beat him in a foot race. You know what I mean? Like, I'd back myself. Do you know what I mean? After a week's training. So, but it does reflect on the scoreboard. And what you're seeing on your screen now is that same stat for them. Because what you asked for was you were interested in matchups, because we got into that last week a bit organically. So this top graph here is scores from turnover, the Holy Grail stat. You can see Carlton in the last 5. Still doing pretty well on that. If you did that in the last 2, though, don't look at it. But the last 5
getting carried by those early games for sure.
Well, the last 5 particularly, in the last 3, that's shot down. Scores from defensive half, really interesting, because I showed Leckdog this earlier, and he nailed it. Carlton focus on the forward pressure. We don't turn it over in the back half of the ground. We're looking to turn it over early, and that's probably an indication we're slow. We know we need to get it done before it gets behind us because we can't chase them. And then score from stoppages, as you'd expect. We're one of the best sides in the league. We are the best side in the league for it. But these are the interesting matchups you've got to look for, with that being said, when you're picking your teams. And these based over the last 5. And you can see some names you expect to see. Some may surprise you. Rivers, Carlton have been punished by wingmen and halfbackmen. the last couple of weeks. Windsor's also there. House, who plays half-back and back pocket for them, he's been killing it. Pickett's another one. Players there that you don't often think of, but teams have had success out of Cowton's forward press from back pocket. So, boys and chat, anyone there you look at and you get a little bit finicky.
Well, Quenton has just come back and had his best game of the year on the weekend, and he always smashes us. But other than that, I haven't put too much thought into these blokes.
I can't actually see all of those names, Pommy. They're a little bit small for me here. But did you mention Howes, Rivers? Who else did you mention there? Not big name players. Who are some of the other ones?
So you've got, for those at home, you've got Clayton Oliver. He's a danger factor of 73%. Jack Billings, 59%. Stephen May, 40%. Rivers, 25%. Petrarca, 11%. Gorn, 11%. Windsor, 8%. And then 6, you've got Howes, Pickett, and Viney.
Yeah, I think the interesting one there's obviously Howes and Rivers and Windsor. I think what that says is I still think there's a relatively imbalance in our team. And whether that's got to do with the blokes we've had out, but I feel like we are not top heavy in regards to speed. We've spoken about that before, but it feels like to me that we're not getting enough from guys like if we're our equivalent to a Jared Rivers, our equivalent to a Howes, our equivalent to a Windsor. Obviously, the drop-off in Ollie Hollands this year has probably hurt us a little bit. We thought he was going to come on. So what I'm trying to say is we've got the A-grade talent, and that was a little bit a miss on the weekend in the midfield. But are we getting enough? Are we trusting Pommy and Leck in that next layer of players? Now, I said it right at the start of the year. I did a ranking system of our players just based on the eye, just based on what I thought going into this season. I had Jordan Boyd ranked at number 13. And everyone's going, what the hell, Jordan Boyd? I thought, this is what I thought, or this is what I wanted. I wanted him to become our distributor, the bloke to go on his bike, that we could free him up, because I think he's our best ball user. And it just, for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened. He's had a good year. Don't get me wrong. He's had a good year, but more defensively minded rather than what I think his strengths are, and that is ball use and speed and power. And we're not seeing it. I think on the weekend, all those guys played particularly well, boys, defensively. I think Chicotta was really good on Hill. I thought Boyd did a really good job on Elliott when he went there. But our next layer of players beyond our stars, I don't know if we believe in them enough. They're just too role players. They're just role players who appear to be playing an important role, but are not having enough impact on the game. And I think that's where we're lacking at the moment. I really do. Even someone like a Matthew Cottrell on the weekend, 9 touches and a goal, it's just not enough. It's just not enough. And what he does when he gets it's good, but it's not enough. It cannot be enough. When you compare it against the likes of Windsor, you compare it against the likes of Langdon, it can't be enough. You can't have one winger get 35 or 32, which is Acres, and then your other only get 9. And I know it can flip sometimes. I know it can flip based on where the ball is, and one might play a more defensive role. But for me, that next layer, Cunningham, Boyd, Cincotta, we just do not get enough from them. And I don't know whether it's a system. I don't know if it's a system-based thing or a trust-based thing, or just the fact that we rely too heavily on about 6 players. And one of those isn't playing at the moment, in Adam Sard.
I'm with you because on my team last week, I had Cottrell on the left wing, and my idea was maybe they don't trust Hollands. So maybe Cottrell, for me, has been one of our top performers throughout the year. He's really shown something on half forward. I thought maybe this will make us spread the play down the left. And it seemed he was more exposed than Hollands, I thought. The only difference was, lo and behold, he went half forward, 4th quarter, kicked the goal. Do you know what I mean? And it was almost like Cottrell was sending a message to Voss. You've taken me away from the position you played me. Look, I've been here 10 seconds. I've kicked a snag. And I agree. We've said it so many times. Hollands makes them leads. So does Cottrell. It happened this week. Hollands made 4 leads, was ignored. We kicked to a contest and the ball came back. It does seem like some of our players would rather kick to Charlie over Elijah or kick to Mackay over always making the lead. And you saw it this week. It was interesting. One of the funniest stats I've seen, the most marks on the lead on the ground was Corey Durden. and it's like, I can't remember him making them, but that is a stat. And I agree with you, Bucky. It feels like sometimes everything is expected of Cripps, Walsh, the top players. And we forget that fourth quarter, all of them were rubbish. And it exposed the B grade.
Yeah, and when and I know it's not, when you really think about our best, if you're picking best players and votes, when do your next rung of players ever feature? I mean, I look at Melbourne, for example. I mean, if it's just like this guy Turner that's just come into the team. I think he's played 2 games. He looks like they're trusting him. They're trusting him. He looks like he's flying for marks. He's getting up the ground. They're looking for him. He turns. He looks. I mean, it's not going to be that easy every week for him. But I don't know. I just don't necessarily see it. I feel like we're really conservative. There's no flair. There's no braid in selection. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make you into a bloody player. All this hype about Jordan Boyd, and I love him. Don't get me wrong. But where is it? Where is the flair from Jordan Boyd? Because we can see he can kick and he can run. But
I think
he's a lockdown defender. I'll pose the question: has he got the ability to get on the outside and get away from his opponent? Do they trust him enough? Because I thought that was going to be the plan. You know what I mean? And it just hasn't worked out that way. It's almost like we're just happy for him to be just a hard nut. And I think he could be more than that. And that goes right across the field, boys, right across the field.
I think that trust thing is a really good word for it, Bucky. I think you can look at, we know who Wiedering likes to kick it to, and we know we're always going to go the long down the line kick, and we know we're not going to go the aggressive one. And while Williams gets a lot of shit for his defensive stuff, he is at times trying to take on that dangerous kick. McGovern tries to take it on. Saad tries to take it on. But it feels like when the pressure's on, we looked on the weekend, we looked the same as we did at the start of last year and at the end of 2022, or in the middle of 2022, when we're kicking out of the back pocket, we're kicking at 40 metres to an 8-man contest on the wing. We're turning it over. It's coming back in. And that's happening over and over again. But when we're up and about, and I'll use the word trust, and we're going through different players, and I'm with you. I think Jordan Boyd should be it. But, when we look good is when everyone in the team is involved and we're moving the ball quickly, even if our players aren't quick. We saw that a lot towards the back half of last year. It's why guys like Fogarty was important, Martin when he was up and about. Everyone was able to get involved, but it seems like, particularly the last few weeks, maybe there's some pressure on, maybe it's lack of talent available, I'm not sure, but we're looking boring, and that's why we're not winning. And, boring can equal winning in a Ross Lyons sense, but we're giving up big scores and they're not we're just hoping for Cripps to have a good chain of play that gets it to Charlie and he takes a miraculous mark and hopefully he kicks the goal. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's a worry.
It's like with the Anzacs sometimes, so much owed to so few. Yeah.
I agree. When you talk about us, we're always talking about, the Charlie, Harry, Cripper, Walsh, Wiedering, and they're big names and big players, and they're exceptional footballers. But it's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than that. And I'm not saying you need every player to be, if you're in the premiership window, you need every player in that team to be having a bit more of an impact on what they are, And I look at Cunningham coming into the team, and I look at him and I think, geez, he's a nice player and he can cover the ground, and it just doesn't do enough. And I don't want Elijah Hollands to end up being that player. And that's what I'm afraid of. He's come in and had a really positive start to his career at Carlton, but I get a bad feeling that he'll end up being one of those types of players that will be a Cunningham. You know what I mean? That never quite develop, because they're not given enough responsibility. And that's my concern at the moment with this team of ours. It's all duck or no dinner with the big boys up front. And it's all duck or no dinner through the middle of the ground as well. And I understand the high half forwards and all that type of things, important defensively, all that type of stuff. But surely we can get better return from all our small forwards. I thought Owies was exceptional on the weekend. Yep. But that is a really good small forward game. I mean, 3 goals, difficult goals, important times. But he's liable to come out this week and not get a kick. But sometimes small forwards do that. But Durden, I mean, Corey Durden was mentioned, Fantasia. I don't know about you guys. How did you rate Corey Durden's game?
Poor.
Yeah, he wasn't good, but I'm kind of willing to give him the benefit of the doubt off that performance based on the last few he's given. I think he's got enough credits in the bank at the moment, particularly when you're putting him on a scale next to, Fantasia and Owies as the other available forward. I think he wasn't good on the weekend, but I feel like he's at least... If Fantasia runs around kind of not really impacting, I feel like Durden runs around and at least puts some pressure on, or perceived pressure, Yeah,
a couple of times there I noticed him, I think it happened twice in the game. He was, I don't know if you noticed it, Pommy, he was a really good get-out as that really fast lead-up when we used the corridor. He came really quick from centre-half forward and took, the ball really well in his hands, like, too quick for his opponent, and it was that kick out of our back half. When we were trying to be aggressive, he was the one that led up for the ball. Did you notice that a couple of times with Corey Durden? Then he was able to spin around and get the ball inside 450. Now, why aren't we doing that more, where we lower the eyes to someone a little bit more unpredictable than just the status quo? You know what I mean? We kick long to Harry, we kick long to Charlie. Why aren't we using those smaller guys a lot more as the get out? Because they've got speed. They can separate. And Durden showed he was able to do that. He's actually got nice hands for his size. So I don't know if I was imagining that, but I'm certainly I don't think I was.
He's done it in the past as well, where you see him sort of in the defensive half, and then next thing he's the one receiving the ball on the forward line. Like particularly the early part of last year, he does have that in his game when he's allowed to do it.
Yeah.
I think the first half of the season as well, I agree with you, Bucky. I thought the movement of the ball made everything better. We're having the argument at the moment, Charlie Curnow doesn't do enough. And I said it on the rating show. The biggest issue with Carlton at the moment is you're all raving about Harry tackles, but he's leading our tackle inside 50 count every game. No other team in the world has a key forward doing that. It's a small. And I feel like now we're moving the ball a lot slower and a bit more lethargically. It's exposing, like you say, Durden. It's exposing Charlie Curnow. It's exposing the players. And I think Harry's thriving because he was probably the only one of this team who played forward under the dark era of Teague and Bolton, where his job was literally take a mark on 12 players. So it's part of the course for him. Where, I think people forget, I was talking to a St Kilda fan, and they were complaining about Max King. And I'm like, Max King's already miles ahead of Charlie, because this time in Charlie's career, Charlie was Christopher Reeve in a fucking wheelchair. At least Max King's learning the game. So you've got to remember, Charlie Curnow has probably been lucky that he came back to fitness under a proper system, but it doesn't suit him, does it? Let's be honest. I said this to Terry. We had an argument on the show. If you're bombing it into 50, who would you want there? Charlie Curnow or Harry? Everyone will say Harry. So, but if you want to get Charlie into the game, you want him leading up like Jeremy Cameron, short and sharp. Do you know what I mean? Short and sharp. So I feel it's there when I really do feel like maybe it is personnel. Maybe it's like we've said. Maybe you trust Sard. Maybe you trust McGovern. They went out. The ball movement changed, and he gave it to Nick Newman, who's more safe. But that scares me if good football is only dependent on Sard playing. That scares me.
Yeah.
The
way I've named my team, I know we're doing it differently, but something I would play with is having both Charlie and Harry push up the ground and maybe playing Tom De Koning as that really deep forward. If we're just going to try stuff, if we want to get Harry and Charlie both involved a little bit further up the ground, I think there's a world where Charlie doesn't have to be the deepest forward every single time, which is pretty much what
I reckon that's an outstanding point. And I know what I noticed against, and I haven't rewatched the game. I didn't want to rewatch that game again, but what I noticed, I don't know whether they did it because my check was being soundly beaten or he was just being sacrificial and taking Whittaker further up the ground. But geez, what Collingwood did in that last quarter, and they looked so dangerous. They had Elliott, Will Hoskin Elliott deep, two mobile sort of hybrid type players who just we were in no man's land defensively with those two guys coming out of the goal square. And I wouldn't mind if it's not TDK and if we play Jack Martin to try and somehow separate the impact of Oliva and May, who are really comfortable getting back there and sort of guarding that space, that really dangerous space. Because I feel like if we just go with Charlie out of the goal square, Harry at centre forward, the stock standard sort of triangle type sort of forward setup. We'll probably hopefully we've got a plan, because one thing Melbourne have been able to do really well this year is get Tom McDonald back, which has allowed Lever to become that intercept defender, and he played on Jerry McCameron on the weekend, so there's no doubt he'll probably play on. I reckon Tom McDonald will play on Harry. Well, it might be the other way around. May might play on Harry and Tom McDonald might play on Charlie, depending on where they are positioned on the ground, which is going to allow Lever to play on a potentially a Tom De Koning or a Jack Martin if he plays down there. So I like it, Lee. I like it. It's worth experimenting with. But I don't know about you guys. I feel like we're still really dangerous in our front half. I still think, every time the ball goes in there, I feel like we are dangerous. Like, even though it can be a little bit messy and we bomb it in at times, we are. I mean,
they're always a threat to score, and we are, as you just said, we're scoring a lot. I just don't think we ask a lot of questions of other teams' defense, other than can you go one-on-one with Harry and Charlie? I think we're obviously dangerous, but I'm sure we can probably be smarter, and particularly if we see that in the game, at a period of the game, it's not working. I don't feel like we let defenders rest quite a lot because we're not really making them run anywhere. Whereas I feel like, as you said, Elliott and stuff pushing up the ground, I feel like our defenders are dead on their legs because they're having to run 50-meter sprints every 10 seconds. So.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Well, I mean, let's get into it. So what we've done is we've got all the players here on your left-hand side of the screen, chat, who are selected by all of us in the team. Then we have a second poll. So if you're in chat, Lockie Jack, you are going to be excited because it's Fappen. So you'll see these are the individual players that were different from them. So you can see I brought back Ollie Hollins and Kent. Bucky brought in Binns and Wilson after his phenomenal VFL game. And Jackie Martin and I was going to say Lewis Young. Let Dog showed faith. But then in italics, in your nan's sick note writing, you have Caleb Marchbank, Domaku, Hudson O'Keefe, Sam Durden, and Zach Williams, the players that weren't selected by us, but are available. And if you want to be depressed, the top-rated players in the VFL doesn't really count because there's only about 5 players. I'm in the top 10 of VFL players, so it's nothing to put on your CV. So on your screen, you'll see the red. So this is Melbourne's team based on what they are going to predict. We have done this using ESPN and Fox Footy and then put them in the positions they've played. So you wanted to see some matchups. So let's do it as a team. So Chin Cotter, is this straightforward? This is Pickett, isn't it? He's had Bobby Hill.
Yeah, I think so. I think he played on him. He played on him in the final last year. Can you remember?
Oh, you're stretching me there, mate. You're stretching
2023. From memory, it was Sard, wasn't it?
Sard or Newman, I would guess.
It was Chin Cotter. It was Chin Cotter.
Did he come in for that?
Yeah, Chin Cotter's played on him twice and beaten him twice.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, I think that's the obvious one. So let's pencil that in.
All right, cool. That's nice and easy. All right, Van Ruin, they're full forward. We've saved Whittaker and McGovern. Are we putting Whittaker on Mr. Van Ruin?
Yeah, I think he's probably their only that sort of tall threat, isn't he?
Yeah. He's a good player, but so is Whittaker.
Yeah, I'll back Whittaker on that one.
Yeah.
He can play now. Jordan Boyd. I agree with you, Bucky. Like, obviously, we want him at the halfback. Do we want him on Chandler or do we want him on Billings? Because I look at Billings and I think Carlton have shelved the Sard plan where we used to not tag a half forward. We used to make him defend. And I think Billings is the worst defensively. I'd like to see someone aggressive and not defend him. Make him defend.
Yeah.
BKK4 in chat reckons Boyd could go to Billings. Eddie reckons, the chat's getting involved, Pom. This is good.
It's a team effort. It's a team effort.
I mean, I am notoriously just don't rate Billings at all. But having said that, he'll kick 3 and have 25. But.
Yeah, I think he kicked 5 when he played for St Kilda against us once. He kicked 5 and had 23 or 24. He's one of those types that he just always seems to play okay against Carlton. But anyway, let's see how he goes. I don't rate him either, to be perfectly honest.
And McGovern, would we rather McGovern be in the intercepts or are you going to play him key position, chat and the selectors?
Fritsch is a tough one. So who do we in our selectors? Are we Pom? How are we doing this? Are we only picking from the locked-in players, or are we picking in for?
Yeah, we're only picking for the locked-in players, and then we'll finish off with the dodgy players.
Well, who do you? Because it's basically going to be Wiedering, Young, or McGovern. Who do we think can go with Fritsch? I
like the idea of if we're going to play Cowan. If we're going to play Cowan, is he there? Yep. Yeah, we all.
He's in all of our teams.
He is. Yes, he is.
I would play Cowan on Fritsch. They're similar size. He's got speed. He's aggressive. He'll do a roll. Keep him out of the game. I mean, Fritsch is the type of player that can turn it on in 5 minutes. You go, oh, geez, he's done a really good job on him and a half. Next thing you know, he's kicked 3 goals in the third quarter. He's that type of player. He generally does it on anyone. You know what I mean? He does it on the best defenders as much as he does it on the not so good defenders. It's a really, really dangerous matchup. It's probably more the speed and his agility. So I would be thinking potentially either Newman or Cowan. But then again,
a lot of votes for Newman, so we'll pencil Newman in for now, and then we'll do the obvious ones. Are we doing the Cripps versus Oliver matchup as we always see?
I'd say so.
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
We'll do
that. And Pom, that vacant
gone.
being on the screen so much, you know, when you see a word so much, you lost all meaning. I couldn't work out what that word was. So.
And Viney, are we just doing it the straight Hewitt?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's him or Chera, right?
Will Hewitt do a run with Ryan?
I'd imagine that.
We've got a lot of
theory
mids,
is fine. After watching Pendlebury, I don't know what you lot in chat think, that they'll probably play Viney as Pendlebury. So I'd like to see Hewitt try and stop that, which I thought Hewitt should have done against Pendlebury, but he had Dacos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure Hewitt could necessarily stop Petrarca. He'd probably be the only other one you'd consider, right?
Yeah, well, and I'd imagine we're doing Curnow versus May, Mackay versus McDonald. That's what they'll want, and probably we expect, which then makes it interesting, chat, because obviously we're going to go our wings, I'm guessing, because we've locked it in. It's going to be Akers versus Langdon and Cottrell versus Windsor.
Yep.
Right, which gives us Owies in the pocket versus Howes. And then TDK will probably go on the bench, so we'll put him with anywhere because that's no matchup. But this makes it interesting here because then we're going to have who we're going to... If we bring these all in, you're going to have Chera will go on the Pine because we've sorted that out. Who would we have? Do we want Elijah Hollands versus River or McVeigh?
River. I probably want someone with a bit of a defensive edge against River. Do we have someone available for selection that can sort of compete with him and keep him accountable?
Well, we could go to our
that was your Cottrell role, but now he's on a wing.
Yeah.
Well, are we bringing Ollie Hollands back in to play him permanently on the ring?
So, Pom, we have three spots from the non-locked-in players we need to pick? Is that maths work out?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of these. So here we've got. Obviously, we want Durden on the field, don't we? Playing full forward. So we're going to put him on the bench. But Jack Martin would probably be the perfect matchup for Jake Lever, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so Blackdog, you've got your wish. So that half forward, are we going to go Elijah Hollands and Connor's chat and selection panel? Are we going to go them?
Is Cunningham capable of playing a defensive role? I know we want.
I had him as sub in my team, just if we're putting all of our cards on the table. His 65% game time or whatever it was didn't fill me with hope.
I mean, personally, I don't know what you guys think in chat. If we went Cottrell on Rivers and then Ollie Hollands on Windsor, that's two first-year players. And Cottrell goes back to his preferred position. And then we've completed the team.
Did you guys have Ollie Hollands coming back in?
I did.
I didn't, but I'm happy to talk it through.
No, I'm more than happy with that, because I just, you'd be. I don't know if it will happen, but I like the thinking. I like the thinking to get those wings nutted out to give us someone who can be a little bit more accountable for Rivers and co. And you also got Neil Bullen as well, who's very creative, very hardworking, gets up, gets back, link player. Probably their most important sort of bloke in the chain, probably Alex Neil Bullen. Very sort of underrated, creative by foot. So he's another one we sort of have to take into consideration. But you can only be accountable for so many. You know what I mean? Like it's.
No, I agree because so far we've got Chincotta, Whittaker, McGovern, Cowan, Newman, Boyd, Akers, Walsh, Hollands, Cottrell, Mackay, Durden, Martin, Curnow, Owies, Pitternet, Hewitt, Cripps, and then the bench would be Elijah, Cunningham, Chera, Kennedy, TDK. Which I think could be great sub if we have like a Connors as a sub, like you say, go at them hard. And then if we need to, we can shift it up. And then you've got that creativity, Bucky, that creativity.
I agree. I agree. I just think it'd be disastrous if we played Kennedy as a sub again. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think you can do that. I don't necessarily know if he plays midfield or he forward, but whatever it is, can't be sub.
So we've brought Martin. If that team there, we brought Martin and McGovern in.
Martin McGovern
Martin
and Ollie
McGovern and
Hollands.
Hollands.
And
Out
Ollie
goes
Hollands.
Williams, Fantasia, and Young.
Yes.
That's strong.
I don't mind it. It's interesting. It's interesting why Ollie Hollands was managed on the weekend for the VFL. He didn't play. So maybe there was an eye on him coming back into the team for this game. I'm not quite sure if that just would have been.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, but I mean, that's it. But I mean, chat. I hate to cut this short. I have got to go somewhere at 8. So that is the team. I hope you enjoyed the new shorter format and getting into a bit of discussions. Obviously, this will be cool with 5 people. But Bucky, preview, is that up tomorrow?
Yeah, preview up tomorrow, mate. I did a VFL report today, so head over to the channel, just talking about the 11 AFL listed boys that played on the weekend against Werribee, plus also a couple of interesting people there. Nick Austin, obviously, maybe having a look at Lockie Young or Heath Ramshaw, or who's the other boy there that we might be looking at? Liam McMahon. Did I say Liam McMahon? Yeah, Liam McMahon as well. He didn't set the world on fire. So, some positive signs, particularly from Billy Wilson. And I reckon if we didn't have those guys coming back in, he'd be a great guy to bring in with his, geez, he can play, this kid. Like, I'm really excited about him for the future. Maybe not right now, but if we didn't have those guys coming back in this week, based on his last 2 weeks in the VFL, I'd be putting him in.
No, mate, I agree with you. Now, it's in the chat, so go and check that VFL report and go and check the preview tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe as well. Let Dog, what are you doing on Lexi Does? I know you bought some new figures. I've just put your link in the chat.
Yep, Alexi Does on YouTube. I will be recording the monthly review some stage this week. Put that up. Got a bunch of photos on Instagram that I haven't put up but are ready to go. And if you follow me on Twitter and you want to see some fantasy football Supercoach draft stuff, I have been re-signed again for another month. So they're keeping me on monthly contracts. So I'll be sharing that on socials.
Make sure you get around it well, chat. I love you all to pieces. I really enjoyed that. And we'll see you next week. Let me know if you enjoyed the new thing. Come and say hello to me on Footy Abroad in 10 minutes. And my preview will be up sometime tomorrow. But peace, love. See you all later.
See you guys.